Okay, so we've had 4 other people. Now we have Professor Jonathan Jansen with us, head of Professor of Education at Stellenbosch University. Prof. Jansen, appreciate your time.
Assalamu alaikum, my brother.
Walaikum salam. We will not talk about Manchester United. I just thought I'll just tell you that.
I'm a Spurs man, just so you know.
I know, well, that's even worse. I mean, you know the scenario, right? That's
I know.
You don't have the special man any longer. In fact, maybe it's a nice way to talk about it, because we claimed to have had the special man in 1994. You know, do we have the special man now?
No, we don't. We have disappointing men and women, you know, who I think dropped the ball. I have enormous respect for, you know, this is 27 is a very interesting, you've seen this on Twitter. People are saying it's, you know, it's the 27th of April, it's 27 years, you know, of our democratic birthdays, 27 years Nelson Mandela spent in prison. And he did what he could, you know, and we dropped the ball. And I think it's a horrible, horrible situation to be in at the moment.
So I've asked the question, where is South Africa at 27? What's your answer?
Well, you know, I think one obviously has to sort of bring some balance to the conversation. I was thinking this morning, there's 2 things I really appreciate about the present, and particularly those of us who lived, like you and me, on both sides of 1994. The right to choose, you know, that wasn't obvious, eh? The right to choose your leaders, the right to vote them in or vote them out. That struggle for the vote, as you know, in 1936, Africans were denied the vote. In 1956, colored people were denied the vote. Everybody was pushed out. So this right to be able to choose your leaders is something I take very seriously. But also in my business, the right to dissent, the right to say, I disagree. You know, there's many countries in the world right now. I mean, take Myanmar, take Iran, take, you know, parts of the United States. If you say what you think, they come for you, you know. And so I think we need to appreciate those 2 really fundamental rights. I think the thing that bothers me most 27 years later is the failure of the promise. We didn't deliver on the promise to young people in schools, to people in shacks, you know, to people who are ill in their homes. We haven't delivered on the promise. And this thing about justice, which I've thought about a lot recently, you know, justice isn't just something that must be captured in policies and laws and regulations. Justice is something that must be felt, right? And if I can't feel that I'm being treated justly, then I don't care what's in the Constitution, because I don't feel it, you know. So even as we speak, Ashraf, there are several thousand children who are not yet placed. It is now, almost May, right? End of April. Mm-hmm. There's still several thousand children not placed in a school. How the hell did this happen? You know? And so as much as I appreciate, you know, the right to think for myself and to choose my leaders, it doesn't feel as if there's justice. Certainly in my business, as you know, which is education, it just doesn't.
So how did we get to that? I mean, I think your initial point is right, that we have the right to have an opinion, we have a right to dissent, and I think we definitely do that, right? Which is something many countries do not have. But that is very hollow for someone who doesn't actually have access to running water, right? They don't get that. Now, how did we get to this position then?
I think what we, you know, and again, you and I have lived on both sides, right, of the struggle for democracy. I think that we assumed that the people who made heroic sacrifices in the liberation struggle, you know, in exile, in South Africa, and so on, were the same people who would carry through those values and those commitments, you know, of Oliver Tambo, for example, at Dulce September, etc., etc. Lo and behold, we get into it, and the liberators become the thieves, okay? They become the corrupt. I mean, there isn't a day that goes by where I'm not shocked again by something at the Zondo Commission. So I think what's happened is when we had the power, we messed it up. We fed ourselves. We even tell ourselves it's our time to eat, And so I think what has been lost is not the wrong policies or, the incorrect laws. It's the loss of a value system that said other people first. In all our faiths, there is this very deep notion that you take care of the weaker in your society before you take care of yourself, And I think that value system has been eroded, it has been lost. And I'm ashamed as a South African that we have lost track of that certainly in our leadership.
Now, so if the liberators have become thieves, and I've made the point, I think on Twitter a few days ago, that I'm less inspired by politicians across the political spectrum, and more inspired by just people wanting to raise the standards of all South Africans. What therefore needs to happen now?
I did I did one of these silly polls, on my Twitter account the other day, and I said, if these were our options in the coming municipal elections, if these were our options, the ANC, the DA, the EFF, and Gift of the Givers, guess who won?
Did the Gift of the Givers really win?
No, but I tell you why. Is, when that fire happened at UCT, who showed up? It wasn't the leadership at UCT. They came much later. It wasn't the politicians. Immediately, Imtiaz Suleiman mobilizes his teams and they show up. If I want to get my fellow Christian friends upset, I tell them at Christmas time, Gift of the Givers feeds more Christian people than the Christians themselves, And so what people see in Gift of the Givers is the possibility of what could happen if an entity, takes people seriously. Imtiaz doesn't feed himself, him. He runs out of a fairly ordinary place in Belthorn, for example, but he makes sure that within hours of that fire, there was several thousand meals made available to Sinnet. That's what I call Ashraf, feeling justice, and not simply talking about it.
I mean, I had 2-3 significant entities, by the way, reaching out to me to say, we know you have access to Imtiaz Suleiman. Can you just pass on his number? We need to reach out to provide support, but we actually want to channel it through him or give to the givers as opposed to through government. So it's that distrust issue, right? But here's the thing: is we got about a minute or so to go. How then do we copy and paste the Gift of the Givers model to running a country?
Yeah, the people in Parliament, who literally spend their time beating each other up, insulting each other, infuriating all of us, I've given up on them. I'll just be honest with you. I've given up on them. What I think is the future of this country is the same dynamic that brought down the end of apartheid, which is when ordinary people, and by the way, this country has more NGOs, more philanthropic organizations than any other. Gift of the Givers is the visible one. Yeah. But you will be surprised in the townships how many early childhood organizations, literacy organizations, even these firefighters. Do you know how many volunteer firefighting groups there are? People who put their lives at stake. I think the richness of our history in terms of grassroots mobilization is where this country is going to come from. And if we can get those grassroots organizations in all 9 provinces to stand up as one, and make it clear to whoever enjoys political power that we can actually get you out of there,
Well, there you are. I'll leave it with that because I'm being nostalgic and I just think of 3 letters called UDF and whatever that means, okay?
Sure.
Professor Jonathan Jansen, thank you for your time. I really appreciate the insights you've shared.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, grassroots, I think a big takeout, and how then do we copy and paste the Gift of the Givers model as an NGO into a model that we can emulate to run our country in total. Well, that's it. South Africa at 27. So much came out of it. Your comments are welcome. You can post on the Facebook pages as well as on YouTube, and you can also connect with me, Ashraf Garda, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Love to hear from you. We'll do it again tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.